So I'm Joe. I just moved back into my 300 square foot garage from a 2,100 square foot wood shop, and I'm sort of adapting. So obviously, it's a bit of a mess here. And I had a little fun that first day of kind of just exaggerating how the working environment actually will be. But in reality, I just need to get some workable space. So I'm going to start off by emptying off the bench of the things that got moved in and getting it roughly into place. That center area is going to be kind of pivotal to just have any space to do anything at all. And a lot of this stuff was packaged up to move here, but like that cart in the foreground, that's not going to be there. This workbench, once I got the top of this cleared off, that created a bunch of space to work on too. So having a little bit of workable space, I also needed to upgrade the lighting, and that was the next order of business. So I decided to just put them on this 1/2-inch plywood, just make these little slats basically, so I could mount the slats to the ceiling and then mount those LED lights that can link up to each other onto the ceiling on top of them. So it provides a lot more light. They're not ideal long term, but I think it works great for now. Now with that set up, I got to work on clearing off some spaces and actually getting some of the tools set up. So I started with the Tormek there first, just having a little sharpening area. But then one of the biggest improvements that I saw in this space that I could make is switching from a dedicated router table to putting the router table in my saw stop rail. And this created a lot of challenges that I wasn't anticipating. One of which was I was coming from a 52-inch rail system, and I had to switch to the 36-inch rails. So I switched with somebody locally. Luckily, they wanted the larger rails. That seemed great, but it actually was the wrong type of rail for the router table. There's 2 versions of it. So if you ever want to make the switch, just know that there's another one that you need that has the right mounting holes. I had another buddy, luckily, that had the same size rails, and I just switched them out on his because he didn't need the router table. So this is me getting it set back up as a table saw. Got the right rails on there and everything. And I was just planning on getting this router table set up and using the Incra Master Lift that was in my current router table and just plopping it into place because I read online on some website that it would fit. To my chagrin, though, it did not. And in just a second, you'll see how far off it actually was. But the router table itself went together very smoothly. It's really nice to have it in the table because that space on my old table saw setup never really got used. So here's the old router table, pulling out the router, and I was literally thinking, I'm done with this project. I've spent quite a bit of money on the extension table and the router table itself, but I thought it was worth it because I am saving so much space. And then here, plopping it in, it seemed a little off. Like those radiuses were the first thing that didn't match up, and then it is just literally a full inch less deep. So I got to go spend another $550 in May of 2023 on the SawStop branded router lift. So luckily, it is nice. I don't think I'm losing anything going to this router lift from my old one. I think everything about it is pretty much the same. I don't like the insert plate as much. The ones on the Incra are a little bit nicer. They're magnetic, so you can pop them out really easily, whereas the SawStop one has this kind of like turn to it. I don't know. We'll see. There's probably other inserts that I can put in there too, so we'll see how it goes. So anyway, I got the new router lift cleaned up, got the motor from the old one into this one. All of this went pretty smoothly. And then when I plopped it into place, it fit. It was the right size. So we're starting off strong with this one. And then after that, it was just about adjusting these little bolts so that the plate would sit flush with the top. Pretty simple. You get them level and then you put those locking nuts into place and then it won't move around. The adjustment, like I said, it's the same as my old one. This little locking ring, it's a little clunky. That tool, I don't know. I'm just not used to it. So once I get used to it, it'll probably be much nicer. And then this fence, I think, is a big improvement over my last one. And then you can see the layout. I missed filming some of this stuff. I'll show you in a few minutes. All that. But one of the things getting in here I realized I wanted was I'd put this panel up before moving in. It's just a 1/2-inch Baltic birch, but my buddy Justin at Portland CNC has developed this wall system. It's on hold at the moment, but I've gotten to use an early prototype with some drying rack arms, and I wanted him to make me a panel with that same grid. These are just like little evenly spaced, a grid work of whatever, hanger holes. I don't know what you call them. I don't know what the official term is, but you can see this drying arm, and then there's another one. It just kind of notches in there. And while you wouldn't think that's a very strong connection, it is extremely strong. I've had 3 beds worth of headboards and rails on these at once, and it's held no problem. So my previous panel was much smaller than this. So having the flexibility of this larger panel to be able to break this down, like when I'm working on something, that, like especially when I'm finishing things, being able to put them up, move some tools out of the way, and then have a space to store them, the parts vertically, it's huge. And I can make them smaller so that if it's vanity parts or something like that, it doesn't have to take us much footprint of that whole wall. So you can see I'm getting that set up here now. Just in the last few days, I've actually gotten the bench cleared off and usable for the first time since I've been in here. This whole shelf still needs to be dealt with. It's not at all organized how I want it, but again, it's just holding stuff for now. This whole surround of the window, I'm going to trim out, build out, be able to have like a plane till, drills, all that stuff will be stored up here. I just like to have them close at hand to the primary workbench. The Panto router I use fairly frequently, but not so frequently that it needs to be out all the time. So I'm thinking of either transitioning this and storing it on top of the router table, or putting it, I'm gonna build some drawers into a station back here that I'll get to in just a minute, that maybe it can just come out when I need it. So it might store underneath for now. So the table saw being fully set up now is really nice. And just yesterday I got an extension cord built because I am able to run power temporarily and when I need it from the inside of my house out here. It's a 220 volt outlet that I've put there, and I just have a heavy duty service cord that I can run this to get some stuff set up until I get a sub panel in here. The router table located over here, I'm not sure yet if this is going to work out for this exact spacing, but I have quite a bit of flexibility on that side also, that the table saw, it's important enough that if it needs, it can slide out here a little bit farther to give the router table more space. And then the next thing to do to really finish this off is to get an extension table. Not extension table, I meant outfeed table. I'm going to use this, the original extension table that came with, I believe I had an extra one of these from the rails. I'm going to set this up so that that can be the outfeed table. It's the perfect sizing to be inside my garage, and then have some storage underneath here with the miter gauge slots I'll put in here. It's just a nice surface to have, and then that'll still allow some flexibility on the router table side. This corner of the shop is still mostly unsettled. The router table is going to get sold. These extra bits are kind of things that need to find new homes. So I need to find a place to put this. I'm going to get some storage for vacuum bags for veneering. Probably going to put those up above everything else over here. The storage cart down here is another thing that I'm just going to get rid of. But this area right here, with these things kind of leaving, this is where a jointer planer combo machine will eventually be, assuming that's what I ultimately end up getting. For now, I'm okay with using other people's shops, renting time wherever I need for the limited amount of joinery that I have coming up, or the little limited amount of milling that I have coming up. It's a manageable amount, so I don't need it in shop right now. Now this wall I've shown earlier has the mountable arms there for storage. That's going to be really nice. Right now it has a few bed components up on it. And then this assembly table is kind of the heart of the shop at the moment. It's got all of my scrap storage underneath the shorter pieces because that's the only place I can think to put them right now. So this being on wheels is going to be really nice to be able to have different work configurations and to also be able to get it out of here when I don't need it. And this bandsaw, it's probably going to have to lift it back here and then get pulled out when I need it. All the power tools really are still kind of in flux. The bandsaw is a little bit larger than I'd like it to be, so I might consider switching that out for a smaller version. And then I also need to figure out dust collection because I don't have a dust collector in here yet. So while I'm really happy about all of the space I'm preserving in the middle of the shop, to be able to set up larger cabinets, to be able to set up a bed still when I'm doing those projects, I also have the reality of I'm going to need some larger tools. The dust collector will probably go in the back corner here, where currently I have a drum sander, which again, that piece, similar to the panel router, I don't need it all the time, so I don't know that that footprint is necessarily going to stay there. I might figure out some other storage solution, potentially together, that those could kind of be collapsed a little bit. Just like with everything else in here, everything's a work in progress, so I didn't actually get footage of putting this together. These were cabinets that I had in my old shop as the miter saw stand, so I just set it up here, and just yesterday I actually put some panels on the wall back here just to be able to screw things in without screwing up the OSB. That doesn't hold screws very well anyway. So still a lot of just random stuff, jigs around, scraps down here, pieces that I'm not going to keep, a bunch of drawer sizes. But generally I like this setup, being able to have the Capex in here, and then probably building out some sort of miter saw deck that could float if I needed it to, meaning like this would mount to a sub piece with extension tables kind of built in, that this could get onto the assembly table pretty easily if, say, I needed some extra storage back here, or this didn't need to be or this couldn't be as big. That's a possibility. So it's come quite a long ways in the month that I've been in this space, and I'm pretty excited about the next steps. Looking to get some equipment in here, the jointer planer, the dust collector, and then making some decisions on my current bandsaw, my current drum sander, finding a lot of different ways to store things so that I can just kind of condense things down and have the most amount of space in this, like, admittedly tiny space, while I'm still trying to run a furniture business. I'm actually going to start making some furniture next week, so really excited about that. Some projects that I kind of had to interrupt. This bed is in progress. I'm going to show that getting finished off and finally done. Some nightstands to match. So a lot of things kind of coming up right away, and then longer term, very excited about the summer, about potentially getting into some personal projects for myself and for our house. A lot of other things going. So yeah, thanks for watching.